What's going on, kings and queens? Thanks for joining me again on Keeping It Copacetic. It's been a tough day. Mondays are always a hard day, but we get through them. We get through them. And now it's time to just kick back, relax, recuperate from the day, let all those stresses go, all those things that happened, all those things that was said. Oh my God, and done. Just time to let them go. Take a moment, relax, inhale, breathe, exhale, just all of that. Just let all of that stress go. So just get comfortable in a chair, on the bed, in the bathtub, or a nice bubble bath. Oh, that sounds so wonderful. Or just whatever way that you need to relax. Just whatever position or things that you need to relax. Just outside, getting a breath of fresh air. If you're driving, I know that's tough out on the road and trying to keep our attention and keep our calm. So just take some deep breaths as well. Take you a sip of tea, get you a cup of coffee, whatever you need. Sometimes a glass of water is just refreshing enough to kind of bring us back a little bit. So that always helps as well. Before we go ahead and get into chapter 12, let's do a short little recap on chapter 11. Chapter 11 was a lot. Was a lot. It was good to see the spa open up. Sheila was so proud of her son. It was just a great day. Everything was working out. He even had Leon rescue him for a minute there when we got really, really, really busy. And then it just all blew up when Eva came sashaying in like she was a partner within the spa. And so that just was not cool. And of course, Andrea, who was there at the time, saw her there and made that call to Rochelle. And Rochelle came down there to crash that party that Eva thought she was having. And so Sheila was there and rescued the day. And so Ernest had a good day. He had a good day. He had a good opening day, even though it went left, right, and up, down, and every which other way. So pacing across the foyer of the Brentwood Motel home in black strappy Jimmy Choo heels and a black negligee, Eva kept calling Ernest's number every 5 minutes. Where is he? She shouted in the empty house. What is taking him so long? In between her phone calls to him, her own phone kept ringing. Every time she hoped it was Ernest, but twice it was calls from Mitchell. She didn't answer. She would deal with him later after she put Ernest in his place and then in between her legs on the fresh sheets in the master bedroom. Then she started getting calls from Natalie. What the hell is wrong with everybody? She screamed in exasperation. She drank a glass of wine to calm her nerves and sat down to wait in the living room. She dozed off and woke up at 20 minutes before 11 o'clock. Looking at her watch with disgust, she realized Ernest wasn't coming. She clumped into the bedroom and put her clothes back on. She was backing out of the garage when her phone rang again. Damn it, she said, seeing it was Natalie calling again. What does she want? She shook her head and answered the call. Hello, she said, sounding agitated. Where are you? Natalie demanded. I've been calling you for 2 hours. I'm on my way home. What's so important? My father, Natalie hollered. He's in St. Thomas Hospital. Eva was stunned. What happened? He collapsed at the house. He tried to call you before he called me, but you didn't give a rat's ass about answering. I'll be there in half an hour, Eva said, pressing the end button on her phone. Her temple began to throb. She was already stressed over Ernest ignoring her, and now this. She took a deep breath to compose herself as she sped along the interstate. When she got to the Midtown emergency room, they informed her that Mitchell had been transferred to neuroscience on the sixth floor, room 617. Eva stared at the numbers above the closed elevator door and watched them going higher, oblivious to the woman who stood beside her. Her nerves were wrecked as she tried to prepare herself for the unknown. She got off the elevator and followed the room numbers as they increased, hating the hospital smell of medicines and disinfectants that filled the air. When she got to room 617, his name was scribbled across the door on a small dry marker board. She pushed the door open and walked in. Mitchell observed her as she approached him. Natalie was with him, sitting in a chair next to the bed. Well, look who decided to drop by, Natalie said, her mouth dripping with sarcasm. Eva ignored her, put down her handbag, and leaned over the side of the bed. She squeezed Mitchell's left hand with one hand and rubbed him across the forehead with the other. What happened, honey? How are you? She asked him tenderly. I'm not sure, Mitchell answered, somewhat confused. I got up from the dinner table, and my legs just gave out under me. I couldn't pull myself back up. Loretta had gone home for the day. I tried to call you, but you didn't answer. Then I called Natalie to come over, and she and Jonathan brought me here to the emergency. I'm so sorry, dear, she said sympathetically, kissing him on the cheek. I was at a dinner meeting with a client and had my phone on silent. Are you in any pain? I wish I was. I can barely feel my legs, he said, looking down at them. They just feel numb, like they're asleep. Have you talked to the doctors? Eva asked, looking at Natalie. Not yet, Natalie told her. They're going to monitor his vitals overnight, and his doctor will be here in the morning after they run some tests. Now that you're finally here, I guess we can go home and get some rest. Natalie stood up to give Mitchell a hug. Thanks, sweetheart, Mitchell said to her. Where's Jonathan? He's out in the waiting room, Natalie answered, putting on her jacket. Tell him I appreciate his helping out, Eva told her as she was leaving. She scowled back at Eva and said, Call me, Daddy, if you need anything. Are you comfortable? Eva asked Mitchell when the door closed. Yes, I'm fine. Don't worry about me, he replied. I didn't mean to alarm you. I can see you're pretty disturbed. I didn't know what to expect. That chair over there leans all the way back. Go on and lay down. We both need to rest. Eva sat down in the chair, let her feet up, and closed her eyes. She couldn't decide if she was relieved or disappointed with Mitchell being relatively okay. She didn't wish any harm to him, but her life would have been so much simpler if he would have just dropped dead. She had feelings for him, but he was no longer the man she had married. She was starting to feel like a prisoner on lockdown, and she wanted out. In the morning, the door swung open, and Dr. Gannon, Mitchell's neurologist, swirled in like a tornado. Good morning, Mr. Hamilton, Mrs. Hamilton, I presume, he said, switching on the lights. I want to discuss the results of the test with you. He paused as Mitchell pushed the button on the railing that raised the head of his bed to a sitting position. Eva also sat up and lowered the lift on her chair. The good news, Mr. Hamilton, is that you did not suffer a heart attack or a stroke. Neurologically, you're good too. There weren't any seizures. So what's going on with my legs? Mitchell asked anxiously. Dr. Gannon pulled back the sheets and examined his legs. There has been some noticeable deterioration in the amount of muscle in your legs. Let's try some outpatient rehabilitation to see if we can strengthen what's there. In the meantime, as a precaution, I want you to use a wheelchair, he said, nodding towards the one in the corner of the room. It's a good idea to have safety rails and guardrails installed in your bathroom and shower. A bad fall can precipitate other problems that we need to avoid. Well, is there any reason for me to stay in the hospital? Mitchell asked impatiently. I don't think you need to rush yourself, Eva interjected, feeling sorry for him. Give it a day to be sure you're all right. Not at all, Mr. Hamilton. You can go home if you like, Dr. Gannon said supportively. I don't blame you. With such a beautiful wife, I wouldn't want to stay here either. The nurse will be in with your rehab schedule and your release papers in a little while. Thank you, Doctor, Mitchell said. Take care, Dr. Gannon replied, shaking his hand and leaving as quickly as he had come in. That's what I thought. There's nothing they can do, Mitchell said, looking at the ceiling. Eva got up and stood by the bed. What can I do? She asked sympathetically. Can I get you anything? Help me get dressed. There's no sense in me lying in this bed. Don't you think we ought to wait for the nurse? Eva asked with concern. For what reason? He snapped. She's not going home with us. Eva sighed. Do you want to take a shower? No, he said curtly. I'll clean up in my own bathroom when I get home. Eva got his clothes out of the closet. He put on his undershirt and shirt by himself. She helped him into his boxers, put on his socks, and helped him put on his pants. He tied his tie and slid his arms into his suit coat. When the nurse came in, he was poised in the wheelchair and ready to roll. The nurse went over some instructions from the doctor with them, gave him his schedule with the rehab clinic, and explained the terms of his release. She also gave them directions to Williams Supply, where they could pick up Mitchell's wheelchair. Do either of you have questions? The nurse asked. Eva shook her head, and Mitchell said, No, we'll be fine. Okay, you can bring your car around to the front entrance, the nurse said to Eva. Eva put on a fake smile and said, All right, I'll meet you all there in a few minutes. Mitchell might have been eager to get home, but Eva needed more time to get her mind wrapped around the situation. Driving out of the parking garage, she resisted an impulse to keep driving and never look back. When she circled into the hospital turnaround, she could see the nurse standing behind Mitchell at the front entrance. She pulled up beside them, got out, and opened the front passenger side door. The nurse pushed the wheelchair close to the car and helped Mitchell get inside. Thank you for your help, Eva said, closing his door and going around to the driver's side. The nurse waved goodbye. You're welcome. Good luck to you. It was only 4 blocks to the Williams Supply Company. Mitchell insisted on waiting in the car while Eva went inside. 20 minutes later, she came out, popped the trunk for the representative who put the wheelchair in the back. Neither she nor Mitchell spoke on the ride home. It was lunchtime when Eva parked the car at the front door of the house. She opened the trunk and pulled out the wheelchair. She spread it, unlocked it, and rolled it to the open car door. Mitchell stood up and then eased back down into the chair. Before Eva could do anything else, Natalie popped out of the front door, grabbed the handles, and pushed her father inside. Eva closed the car door and followed them in. Loretta has some lunch prepared for you, Daddy, Natalie said, pushing him into the dining room. Have you eaten? No, we haven't, he answered. I don't have a big appetite, but I do want to take this opportunity to talk with you and Eva. Natalie was about to move his chair from the table when he said, I'd rather sit in my chair, sweetheart. My legs aren't totally useless. Natalie watched him protectively as he moved from the wheelchair to his chair at the head of the table. Then she took the seat next to him opposite of Eva. Loretta came in and filled the table with Cobb salad, clam chowder, and roast beef sandwiches. I'm glad to see you back home, sir, she said before she left the room. Eva made a plate of food for Mitchell and then one for herself. She ate in silence, paying no attention to the darts that Natalie's eyes were throwing in her direction. Mitchell finished his bowl of soup and took a few bites of his sandwich before he began to talk. Lately, I've been detecting some tension between the two most important women in my life, and that's not something I want to continue. It really disturbs me, and I want all of us to respect and care for one another. We are family. I apologize for my behavior, Daddy, Natalie said. It is not my intention to upset you, but there are reasons for my animosity towards Eva. Eva stared back at Natalie and thought, who did she think she was coming for her? Mitchell rested his hand on top of Natalie's and said, I love you dearly, sweetheart, and I appreciate your concern for me. However, Eva and I need some time and space to adjust to the new circumstances in our life. I'll back up for your sake, Daddy, Natalie said, getting up from the table. Then she glared at Eva. Trust and know that I'm not going to close my eyes, and if you do anything to hurt my father, I'm coming for you. Eva smiled as she watched her plod out of the room. If Mitchell hadn't been there, she would have shown that girl a side of her that she would regret seeing. She was definitely too deep in their personal business. When Mitchell heard the door shut, he turned the conversation to Eva. There are some important decisions for me to make at this point. I'm going to need your support while I figure these things out. You have that, Mitchell, Eva assured him, rubbing on his arm. Dr. Gannon has me scheduled for 2 weeks of daily physical therapy. I would like for you to be there with me. When it's over, I think it would be a good time for us to get away. Eva took a large gulp from her glass of lemonade to swallow the words in her mouth. There was some language there that she was sure Mitchell didn't want to hear. Being that he had just gotten home from the hospital, he deserved some extra consideration. I know this is a very difficult time for you, so I'll do my best to be there in your physical therapy, she said carefully. However, taking a vacation afterwards would be hard for me to manage. I have several irons in the fire that I can't leave right now. There's much we can't control in this life, Eva. What I'm grateful for is the good fortune that money is not an issue. I'm sure that whatever you have going on, it can wait. If you never sold another piece of property, it wouldn't even matter to me. I can provide for you. You're asking too much for me, Mitchell. You want me to push my business to the side and drop everything I'm doing. I'm your husband, and you're my wife, in sickness and in health. That's what it means to be in a marriage. There was no way I could have known that I would be in this predicament that I find myself in. If you were in my shoes, I would do whatever you needed from me. Eva had understood the terms of her marriage at the outset, but things had changed, and now it seemed like he was altering the agreement. She didn't know what he required of her or if she was able to fulfill his expectations. Let's take it one day at a time, she said, unwilling to agree to his request. This is a lot to absorb all at once. Mitchell grabbed her left hand and squeezed it. Eva winced from the pain of her wedding ring pressing against her fingers. Certainly, my dear, he said lovingly. That's all any of us can do. Over the next week, Mitchell worked his agenda and kept Eva occupied at his side or beside him, pushing his wheelchair. She detested every minute of it. In all her dreams and fantasies, she had pictured herself with a handsome man, a wealthy man, a powerful man, even an older man. But never once had she imagined herself with a man in a wheelchair. At the end of the first week of physical therapy, she was on the verge of losing her mind. She couldn't stand breathing the same air as Mitchell, morning, noon, and night. The only time he was out of her sight was in the bathroom. Behind that door, she had sent numerous text messages to Ernest that he had not bothered to answer. On the first day of his second week in therapy, Eva excused herself and went out to take a walk across the street in Centennial Park. She found a picnic bench, sat down, and called Ernest. Hello? Hello? Hello, Rochelle rudely replied on the other end. Who is this? Eva said, taken aback. Who are you trying to call? Rochelle snapped back. I'm trying to reach Ernest Shaw. Well, this is Rochelle Shaw, his wife. What do you want? I want to speak to him, Eva said with authority. Well, you have to give him that message through me, Rochelle declared. This is my phone now. Tell him to call Eva Hamilton. I want to speak with him about a business matter. I bet you do, but you can forget that, Rochelle said nastily. You're messing with the wrong one. Your business with my husband is done, bitch. Go find another home to wreck before you wreck yourself. Eva pressed the word N to hang up the call, wishing she could literally slam the phone in Rochelle's country-ass face. She considered calling in earnest, but by now, Mitchell would be looking for her. She hurried across the street to the rehab clinic. She had one more week, and then after that, Mitchell would be off her back, and she would let Ernest and his little wife know who the boss is. Later, Eva and Mitchell had both been stewing for 2 days. The fire under the pot was on high, and the contents were about to boil over. She had been the dutiful wife and supported him as he requested. She had conducted her business by phone and computer from the house with the help of her agents. There wasn't any more she could do. Now that he was done with his physical therapy, she was ready to get back to her life, and that's exactly what she planned to do after dinner. She took her shower, and instead of joining Mitchell in their sitting room in her loungewear, she put on some slacks and a light sweater with a matching cardigan. Where are you going? Mitchell asked when he saw her dressed. I'm going out, she said offhandedly. Mitchell got angry. I'd rather you didn't. I'm sorry about that, Mitchell, but I'm going. I'm not going to be held in this house like a prisoner anymore. You had lost your perspective, Eva. It was necessary for me to remind you that you are a married woman. Married is one thing, Mitchell. Joined at the hip is another. I've got some business to take care of. So what priority do you have that is above caring for your husband? I didn't sign up to be your caretaker. If I wanted to play nursemaid, I would have had a baby. You have got to let me breathe. Is that what they're calling it now? He asked, enraged. You're jeopardizing our marriage for what? Some wannabe? What's wrong with you? You're practically old enough to be his mother. And you're old enough to be my father, she countered back. There's only so much I'll tolerate, Eva. That goes for both of us, she said, storming out of the room. And that was chapter 12. Ooh-wee. Things are getting hot at the Hamilton home. My goodness. And Rochelle is not having 1 minute of Eva's mess. So join me again next time as we move on to chapter 13. Thanks again for joining me on Keeping It Copacetic. Please like and subscribe. And don't forget to give me some of your comments about the book. And I will see you next time. Take care and be safe.